All right, let's get all our Facebook friends and family up in here before it's officially time to start the episode. The coffee is starting to flow. We got one check mark and two check mark. Welcome in, welcome in. It is the 21st of February. My God, this month is flying by. Scott, how you doing? Happy Tuesday to you. Good to have you.
I'm doing good. I guess I didn't realize the combine's next week. I'm like, what?
Yep.
I guess I better get my Senior Bowl stuff out since I'm behind on that. I just finished logging all of that video. There's over 800 plays, and all of the the 11v11, I probably watched 6 or 7 times. So, because it's like, okay, left tackle, left guard, center. You watch every offensive lineman, see how they do, and then you move on. And sometimes you watch it more than once to see, okay, was that a good play? Was that a good play? So 800 plays. It takes a while. I'm done. Now it's time to start churning out some videos for y'all.
Heck yeah, I'm excited. I always really enjoy those combine videos, the Senior Bowl videos, everything like that. I really enjoy the combine as well. I know that the measurements that teams are using are probably going somewhat the way of the dodo here. I mean, obviously the arm length and stuff and those official measurements are great, but the vertical jump, the long jump, et cetera, teams are now using more and more GPS data from on the field versus the combine gathered data and a bunch of more specific thresholds that they are looking for. Now, granted, we don't have historical data dating back 25 years that we can use to compare to what a good player is versus what a player that didn't work out is. But over time, I mean, once you gather about 10 years worth of this GPS data, some of this combine data is going to become somewhat obsolete. So it's still fun. Enjoy the pageantry. It's more about the meetings and the medicals anyway. It always
Yeah,
has been.
well,
It
I mean,
always
we
will be.
know the combine again. We know the athleticism. If we see a good long jump, if we see a good broad jump, the guy's got a good first step and explosiveness. We see a good shuttle and Elcone, we know he's got a good change of direction. The 40 isn't as big a deal, and it's always been overrated, but it's a good stepping stone. You don't want a guy out there running a 4.8 at wide receiver unless he is. Well, Anquan Bolden ran a 4.8. Yeah, it was one guy in 50 years. I get it. That's the exception. If you want to build a team full of exceptions, you're going to have a bad team. But yes, I do look forward to the combine, and like I've told y'all since you've known me, is pay specific attention. Elcone, 10-yard split, shuttle, and vertical and long jump. Don't worry so much about the 40. Everybody's fast these days.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you said the 40 doesn't matter as much. I'm like, well, they are now gathering the 10-yard split from that 40, which is extremely important, in my opinion, as far as like one the ones that are gathered out there. And obviously, it depends on position, but a lot of combine talk. Well, that kicks off, I believe, next Thursday. So excited to see that and see who steps up there and see if anybody can make a name for themselves out there and get those official measurements. Those cutoffs that you're looking for, like, ooh, who's got sub 33-inch arms for offensive tackle? Who's weighs less than 240 for the edge rush spot. It'll be interesting. Also interesting. Hello to some folks in here. Ethan always coming in saying good morning, Jensen Broncos country. Good to see you, Ethan. DWI guys. Hope you're doing well. Jeremy Sean's in the house saying morning, Nick and Scott and Ethan. Good to see you. Dave Glassman still writing. Good for you, Dave. We appreciate that. Mark Hoynak coming in saying, come on, Rex, sign the papers. Rex is taking his time. We'll see if it's the right deal for him. And it would have to be a good offer according to, or the perfect situation, according to Adam Schefter, if he was going to leave ESPN. And the TV stuff seems like a cushy gig, so I don't doubt that one bit. Phil Hagginson. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Well, and you get to say what you want to for the most part. I mean, Rex Ryan's never had a problem with coach speak. But, we talk about, why don't they ever say anything, these guys, the analysis, because they might want to get back into the game. We talked about, well, he ripped Russell Wilson a new one in week 3 in the Denver Broncos. Well, now he might end up coaching him. That's awkward. Kind of. For a lot of guys, it might be. Not for Rex Ryan. That's just who he is. Love it or leave it. He doesn't particularly care, which I love him for, honestly. You've heard me say a zillion times, I don't mind an a-hole. I can't stand a hypocrite.
Yeah.
He's not a hypocrite. He might not. He's brash and boisterous and obnoxious, but he's not a hypocrite. He is who he is. I love that in a person.
In small doses, maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. I don't necessarily, like I said, he's not my personal cup of tea.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I respect him for it. I don't dislike him because of his opinions or his brashness. It doesn't necessarily bother me that much as someone that's a flat out hypocrite that says one thing, does another. That bothers me a lot more.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Hence why sometimes we don't go down the path. But politicians, that kind of stuff. But anyway, Philip coming in. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you, Philip. I'm glad I didn't get you mid-coffee sip there. Colin Wood, good day. All good to see you, Colin. Rob Bucksbaum, good morning, Nick and Scott. The best MHH team. Rob, you're going to make us blush. Maybe that's the coffee kicking in. Why would the Broncos move Sutton if his dead cap is more than the cap hit? I understand the picks, but it doesn't seem to make sense. I don't know if the dead cap is more than the cap hit. I would have to look at that. I know that you would get 7 in relief versus 11 dead cap. I don't think his cap hit is less than
on a
11.
Straight up cut. It would be
on a cut, but not a trade.
His dead cap, if you go to Spot Rack and look at it, his dead cap, the way it is higher than his cap hit. But when you trade, and if you can designate it at post June 1, and you assume somebody's picking up a good bit of his salary, you get some of that back. But it's still not a great cap move to do it. You come in, you'd get some money back, and you're hoping to get. Looks like I'm lagging a little bit now, Nick. I feel like max headroom over here. You're hoping to get a decent pick back out of it is one of the main reasons, and you'd be cap neutral at worst.
Yeah, looking at it, if you do release him, you're negative in the cap savings. But if you trade him, even pre-June 1st, the dead cap hit of $11.475 million, not great, but you do get cap savings of $6.791 million, which is not big. But if you can get, let's say, the value of a mid-second round pick for that, and you have Sean Payton who's interested in maybe bringing in Brandon Cooks or Michael Thomas or somebody he'd worked with in the past, that's the conversation that you're having there with moving Courtland Sutton. It's not just moving on Courtland Sutton, it's the draft capital plus somebody else coming in. And no trade like this is happening without Sean Payton saying, yes, let's do that. So you would have the support, the endorsement from the head coach without a doubt. And why are we talking about this, Rob? Recently on the Athletic Football Podcast show, they have a daily football show, almost like us out there, but they had longtime NFL writer, Denver local as well, Lindsey Jones on the show. She's been covering the NFL for a long time, and she does a great job for The Ringer. And she was on there, and she said that there's been some. I'll just pull up the quote here. Let me pull it up here real quick. But she essentially said that the Broncos might be looking to move Courtland Sutton. So let's pull that up here and listen to it. Let me know if you guys can see that. And nope, let me pull it up here. There we go. Awesome.
There's been some buzz around in Denver lately. Like, could Courtland Sutton be one of those guys? I mean, he got paid.
Or Jerry Jeudy.
Not Jeudy, especially because he has not gotten his second contract.
Yeah.
Sutton has gotten his second deal, but that they have some larger contracts and trying to figure out what actually is going to work for whatever this. We'll get there. Whatever the new Russell Wilson offense is going to look like, but Sutton's a guy who's kind of been. His name has been buzzing around a little bit as maybe a guy who could get moved.
All right. Well, there you go. Lindsey Jones. I'm talking, and that clip comes from just talking about the wide receiver market in general this year, how bad it looks in comparison to what is your top wide receivers available might be like Jacoby Myers or Olamide Zaccheaus in free agency. And the wide receiver class doesn't really have a true, top of the class kind of guy this season. So what does that mean? Trades could be on the market for many teams. And we saw a lot of teams have great success with wide receiver trades last season. Obviously, maybe even a win-win trade here, but the Dolphins bringing in Tyreek Hill, that was a win for them, I would say, for the Dolphins. Also a win for the Chiefs. You have obviously the Eagles trading for A.J. Brown. What a complete revolutionizing piece for that offense for them, along with Jalen Hurts, unlocking him. And then we can debate Devontae Adams, but he was incredible this season. It wasn't him that was the issue there. It's the offensive line and the defense for the Raiders. So trades might be the way to go. And apparently Courtland Sutton's a guy whose name has been tossed around as a potential trade candidate.
Yeah, you look at the draft, guys in the draft. I'm going to pop out of here. I've got a bad lag for some reason. I'll be right back.
Okay.
But we'll talk about draft and free agency available wide receivers, and it's not a good-looking crew right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Gray, let's say hello to some folks while Scott's fixing his internet there. Morning, Broncos country, Nick and Scott. Well, I think we may know today, I hope, talking about the defensive coordinator, I am sure. Michaela Israel. Michaela rocking the new photo here, saying good morning with the sunrise coming up, or the sunset, whatever, come over the water there. Beautiful, making me miss Hawaii already. Michaela, not nice. But no, appreciate you coming in. Bradley Conger saying good morning, Broncos country. We got a guy, Michael Ronquillo, coming in saying good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. I enjoyed the Buckham shirt and photo yesterday on Twitter there, Michael. Appreciate you.
And thank you for the stars, Michael. Appreciate the support.
God, love that. Breaking the seal there. We appreciate that. And Scott, you look like you're doing better there. We're talking
I don't
about
know.
wide receivers.
Like I said, in the last month, I've had green screen problems, and I didn't change anything else. I've got a $500 graphics card in this thing. It's as expensive as the damn computer. So who knows what's going on?
God
It's not like
bless.
I don't have enough processor. This computer's a beast. All of a sudden, it's just not happy.
Yeah. Well, it's the end of winter. Everybody's ready for it to get it back outside. But wide receivers, talking wide receiver, Courtland Sutton. Why would the Broncos be interested in moving him? What's going on with the oh, there we go. Broncos
Let's
country.
change
We're
the
back.
background, see if that helps.
But talking a little bit of Sutton potentially being moved, according to Lindsey Jones of The Ringer, who's, again, phenomenal reporter, been covering the NFL since 2008, lead reporter and editor for The Ringer, used to work for The Athletic, used to work for USA Today as well, I mean. And Jeremy coming in and saying, what does the word buzz mean? This group doesn't leak anything, so media spitballing or a calculated leak. Hard to say. We have a new player in town in Denver, in Sean Payton, and so how information is being exchanged is going to change a bit. I don't think that the ownership group was quiet and pretty good with the moves for the new head coach, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the case for the draft and players going forward as well. So we'll see. It could be buzz. And also the thing is, when you're shopping players, it's not just your team. Yep, there's multiple parties involved. Yes, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, there's three sides to that equation. You've got the Broncos, you've got Sutton, and you've got the teams you're talking with. So when I say Sutton, I mean Sutton's agent. You're calling up the New Orleans Saints. Someone floated Ryan Ramczyk in here. You're calling them up. All of a sudden, hey, he calls their source. They call up, hey, the Broncos are shopping Sutton. We just got a call about that. They've got him on the block. I don't know how serious it's going to be, but they're listening. Okay, well, that's not a leak from the Broncos side, but if you're going to move Sutton, you got to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why would this make sense? The move that I look at, so what the Broncos could get for them, I think you could probably get in terms of value, not the actual pick, but like the assortment of picks equaling this value. A mid to late second round pick is what I'd be shooting for. Now, Nick, where does that come from? We kind of already talked about it. The free agency market at wide receiver is dreadful this year. The top wide receivers currently that are going to be available, Olamide Zaccheaus and Jacoby Myers. They referenced that in that interview there as well.
I can't believe you're saying Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah, that's one of the top guys.
Who don't know who Olamide Zaccheaus is, he was a number 4 for the Atlanta Falcons last year, who got moved to a number 2 role after Russell Gage, who should be a 3, got a big money deal in free agency from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Falcons used their option or whatever it was, whatever you call it. I get confused in all the terminology, to get him to a 1-year deal for about $2.5-3 million. A nice raise for Olamide Zaccheaus. He's a nice number 3.
Yeah.
That we're talking about him as being one of the best options at free agency means there aren't any really good options in free agency.
And then you have the draft this year with a bunch of number 2 and number 3s, in my opinion. Quentin Johnson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers. I mean, they're kind of more like niche players versus your kind of, what does that mean? Trade market would be big, and I kind of think we already saw not an indictment on this. Sorry, and if I just got a little bunched up there. But this, I think, was already kind of being played out with the Bears willing to trade their own second-round pick, which ends up being the 32nd overall pick in the draft, for Chase Claypool, who has had an up-and-down career to date. I don't know if he is worth, in a typical draft, that early second-round pick, which the Bears knew it was going to be an early second-round pick with where they were going. Maybe not 32 overall, but still, if Chase Claypool can get 32 overall or a top second-round pick, I think Courtland Sutton, with his still pretty cost-effective contract that you'd have control over for the next few years, should be able to get a mid-second-round pick on the market. If not, then I'm not looking to trade him, but it is a seller's market at wide receiver right now, and the Broncos might be interested in moving a piece to recoup some draft capital.
So it might make sense if you were a team that was in the rebuilding mode to take pass catchers in the top 10 the last couple of seasons, right, Nick?
Yeah, the market has changed, man. It's never been more of a wide receiver. There's a lot of good wide receivers out there. Teams need more. It's weird. It's like there's not enough. You can't create enough good wide receivers for teams to consume them. As weird as that sounds. Richard Miles coming in. Good morning, guys and Broncos fans. Appreciate you. Diamond Rattler saying, boom, let's go. Gatorade Gaming coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. What's good, Broncos country? Not too much. We're just chilling, enjoying.
You're hung on that long enough to sound like the water boy.
Yep,
Gatorade. Well, I was actually sound like Coach Klein, but you know what I meant.
Did you know that scene was against the Iowa Hawkeyes when he blocks that kick? That always hurt my feelings when I watched that when I was a kid. Like, why does he have to be against Iowa? Why can't it be, Iowa State or Wisconsin or something?
But Iowa won the game, right?
No, he blocked the field goal and then returned it for a touchdown to win the game.
Okay, that was when he returned it on, not the one where he says 72.
No. It's the water
then went and drop kicked that guy.
Sucks. Yeah, that's no. They blocked it and lost. But why would Iowa go on the road to southeastern Louisiana State? That doesn't make any sense. Collinwood, how is Tim Patrick's rehab coming along? If we're thinking about trading Sutton, we don't know. It's impossible to know. But I think that if the Broncos are actually taking calls and shopping around Courtland Sutton to see what his market is, I think they feel okay about Tim Patrick and maybe potentially other options that could be joining the Broncos again. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Two names that stick out to me is if the Broncos did move Sutton, maybe they would make a move for Michael Thomas. Maybe they would make a move for Brandon Cooks, which would be probably significantly cheaper to bring in, if not zero draft capital for Michael Thomas, who might be a cap casualty. So I think it means good things for Tim Patrick, but I have not heard anything specific.
Yeah, I agree. Just reading the tea leaves, if you're even thinking about trading a wide receiver, it means Tim Patrick's coming along just fine.
Yeah. Yep, probably. We got our guy on Twitch here. Fed Butyl is coming in saying, greetings, guys. Going to listen to you later this evening when I'm on my post-dinner walk. That's when I do a lot of my podcast consumptions as well on dog walks. So I'm with you there. I'm not egotistical enough though to go listen back to what I put out there. So you have to let me know.
I don't think anybody likes the sound of their own voice anyway.
Yeah, I've met some people that I would say they probably do, but I'm not.
While they're talking, maybe.
Yeah, 100%.
They don't necessarily want to go back and listen to it. No, that's actually a pretty good insult, isn't it? Boy, he sure likes the sound of his own voice. It means he talks too damn much.
Yeah. Some people might say that about us on here with Thin As Many shows, but hey, you guys are still sticking around and we appreciate you. I'm not tired of Scott yet, so that's a good thing. I don't think I will be. We got, I said hello to somebody in there. I took away. Albert Knoppers, good to see you, Albert. We appreciate you always coming in and saying hello on Facebook. If you guys are on Facebook like Albert, please click a thumbs up on the way and hanging out with us. And also, as the ticker says, super chats on YouTube and stars on Facebook. Support the channel. We always appreciate that, folks. Mandango Dan coming in saying, good morning, breakfast people. That A6V6. I don't recognize this name, but good morning to you.
I'll remember it, though. Like I said, Nick and I were talking cars for a couple minutes before we came on here. So that A6, that Audi A6 is a nice ride. And the RSs are just sick.
They nice looking cars. One of my good friends, his grandfather worked at Audi for 40 years out there, and I think it was Audi out there in Munich, but I digress. Good morning from Salt Lake, Utah. Haven't commented in a while, but I'm glad I'm finally catching the show.
Is that what that says?
Yeah, I picked up on that. Luckily, I've seen that recently, so I knew what it meant. But otherwise, I would have leaned into it a little bit more. But yeah, Salt Lake,
it's I thought it was a self-commentary. So anyway, Don Jaramillo coming in. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. My wife and I got a new king bed. Now we're talking, we're off the rails already here. I've been sleeping in on my days off now. Sorry, I missed you. Well, we're sorry we missed you too. So, you got to go king. You go king, you'll never go back. You ever wonder how you never slept in a king bed? The problem is I don't let my dog sleep in my bed. I never really have because he's 90-pound German Shepherd. But a 15-pound cat will own a king bed. So he's been taking up all of my space lately. He comes to bed. I never hear him. His name's Ninja.
Yeah.
He comes to bed about 11:30. I never hear him. I just wake up and I'm like, oh, there he is. Hi. Gotta go king.
And it must have taken advantage of a President's Day sale there, bringing the king bed. We got ours a couple years ago. The dog does sleep in the bed with us, the 80, 75-pound golden retriever and the 12-pound, 13-pound cat. So, yeah, that's a tight fit in there, but it's a good time. Dom, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in. Kevin, Sutton would be a good trade for the Broncos. We'll dig into that a little bit more, what it could mean. Alabama Chagreen, good morning, gentlemen. We are going to have to really lean on our scouting department to find us some late and undrafted studs that could potentially start for us at running back and defensive tackle. I think it's not hard to find running back by committee from rounds 3 to 5, especially in this class. I think it's a pretty good class. Right now, I'm of the opinion that you go into this year, just go into the season team building wise, expecting Javonte Williams to miss the entire season. I think that's the safest way to go about it. It sucks, but you don't want to put him in a situation where you're rushing him back. You don't want to put your roster in a situation where you're depending on him to be back and healthy. So I would just go into the season like he doesn't even exist, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then whatever you get back out of him is just gravy.
Yes.
But yeah, you're going to need at least two. Even if Latavius Murray is one of them, and then draft or free agency. That was one of the questions we had, I think, last night is, what about, or it might have been yesterday morning, Nick. I thought we were good at running back. No, you're not.
Yesterday morning.
If Javonte Williams doesn't come back, Mike Boone's a free agent. No real reason to bring him back. Chase Edmonds, it could be a re-sign, but he's going to be a cap casualty cut that you might decide to bring back. Tyler Beatty, wasn't he a midseason practice squad guy?
Yep.
So you're really thin at the running back position. You really are.
You need a lot of help at running back. There's probably not a position in the NFL that is easier to turn over a room. Luckily, via draft and cheap veteran free agents as well.
We saw that last year. Latavius Murray came in and was your best back over the course of a season. You pulled him off someone else's practice squad.
Yep.
That's it is there. If you look at, we're talking franchise tags, we'll get into that a little bit too, y'all, as we start talking Draymond Jones and the franchise tag. You look at franchise tag, it's $10 million for a running back. So, why wouldn't you pick up a 5th-year option on a first-round running back? Well, why would you take him in the first round anyway? Because the first-round option is more than a franchise tag, which is the average of the top 5 highest-paid players. So, if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, for example, I can't believe they didn't pick up Josh Jacobs' option. It's cheaper to tag him, to pay him as a top 5 running back than it is to pay him in a slot in the first round. So it is. It's when we're talking some of the biggest needs for the Broncos, ironically, they're in some of the cheapest positions.
Yeah, I do not disagree with you there. And he also talks about defensive tackle. You can find plug and play veteran defensive tackles that are fine, that can fill a niche and fill a role. The Mike Purcells of the world. You're probably not going to find dynamic ability, difference makers out there without paying dearly for them, because the ones that are, 3 down, technique, positional, versatile, playing different slots across the defensive line, pass rush and defensive stopping kind of guys, those are really expensive. But I think you can find some defensive tackles that can at least eat snaps and eat space for relatively cheap 1-year, 2-year kind of contracts if you have to go that route. It's not ideal, especially because, Scott and I are very much trench oriented, and me specifically, defensive line oriented. I love the defensive line more than anything by like a long shot. I'd rather have the best defensive line in football almost than anything else, besides maybe the best quarterback, but I digress. But the defensive tackle, that's going to be one that'll be interesting to follow. And good caveat here, or good transition here. I think the franchise tag can be placed today, starting today, and the window closes on March 7th. We'll see what happens. And we got Jeremy Sean coming in saying, I doubt we tag Draymond with $20 million. And Rob saying, we can tag Draymond starting today. Do we? What say you? Maybe after we get our defensive coordinator in place. What do you think, Scott? Draymond Jones.
Draymond Jones, you're spending the next 2 weeks trying to get a long-term deal done with him. And if you don't, you probably tag him, because it's basically, I want this guy at 13 or 14 million. And if I'm going to say, okay, if I offer Draymond, here's a 3-year, let's even call it expensive, 3-year, $45 million deal with 30 guaranteed. Okay, that's 15 each. And we're not quite there yet. Is it worth it to me to tag him and get 19 for that $4 million extra dollars on a 1-year deal to try and have that extra time to either trade him so he can work out a new deal, or have that extra time in order to work out a new deal internally? Yeah, it is. It's worth it. The worst case scenario, you're overpaying him for 1 year, or worst case, he sits out and you don't pay him at all. I don't think he's a $20 million guy personally. 19 million, I think that's too high for him. I just haven't seen the production that makes him a top 5 average defensive lineman in the NFL. I think he's maybe 2/3 of that. Again, 12 to 13 is probably the sweet spot for me. But again, it comes down to supply and demand. Yeah. Who's he competing against out there on the open market? And everybody needs defensive linemen. Who doesn't need a good DL? So what's his competition out there? But yeah, I think if a deal doesn't get done in the next 2 weeks, he's going to get the tag.
I think he's going to get a contract somewhere from 15.5 to 17.5 per year out there with right now, especially because he's a top 10 probably pass rusher from the interior spot, and he's versatile. Now, the thing that Draymond has going against him is I don't think will be that valuation for every single defense. If you're looking for more of the Vic Fangio, gap and a half controlling up front kind of guys, that's not really his best fit. I think he was much better in his Giro Evero kind of defense where, pinning your ears back, playing more single gap stuff, more of that classic 3 technique that can also do some 5 technique stuff, heavy edge, versatile across that defensive line. Very valuable. But Mike Kliss today tweeted talking about Draymond Jones, saying franchise tag window opens today. Broncos are not expected to consider the franchise tag with Draymond Jones until the March 7th deadline. So they're going to draw it out as much as possible. No rush on that. You have the deadline there for a reason. He says even then they may pass in hopes of working out a deal by the March 13th to 15th free agency opener. Broncos do love Draymond, maybe not love the tags of 18.94 for defensive tackle and 19.73 for defensive end. And then Kliss goes on to say, then again, no team ever likes a player's market this time of year. This figures to be down to the deadline negotiation with Draymond. He's a very good player. It's we can't afford that versus we can't afford to lose him dilemma. Not decided until the deadline. Pressure's on both sides. So we'll be interesting to see what happens here. I will be curious also to see that designation. Now, I know it's only, 1.5 million difference there, or maybe even a little bit less. But the defensive tackle versus defensive end, I really hate how the NFL does the designations of positions for this, because while Draymond Jones was listed as a defensive end, he's not an edge rusher. He's an interior defensive lineman. So he should be tagged as an interior defensive lineman. He should not be tagged like Nick Bosa, like Myles Garrett, like TJ Watt. That's not who he is. So
yeah,
interesting to see.
I actually kind of like the idea of him in a 4-3 as a 4-3 end. 6'3", 280 pounds as a 4-3 end. I think, depending, if you're looking at a strong side guy, I think he could be really good there. But again, you're talking about the versatility. He's a really good 3-4 end. He's a little light for a 4-3 defensive tackle.
I think as a 3 technique, he'd be fine for one gapping,
but not your best. Yeah, but not not where he would be best. But if you think about the mismatches he could have, it's like having a tight end. The mismatches he could have as a 4-3 end. He's too quick for the tackle. He's too strong for the guard. If he comes inside, he could eat up. If he stunts inside, he's taking up double teams. I think as a 4-3 end, he could be really good.
Yeah, could see him opposite of a wide 9. More of a. I really think he'd be awesome at a Rex Ryan defense. Honest to God, and I'm already starting to do a little bit of research on. Well, obviously I've been doing research, but okay. Well, who are the guys in round 3 that maybe if you lose Draymond Jones could offer something similar? And not to take this down too far of a draft path here, Scott. Were you there on the last day of the Senior Bowl practices still recording? The Northwestern kid, the Northwestern defensive tackle. I'm going to butcher the heck out of his name. He's only 6'2", 285 pounds, but he was dominant. And that last
call
day.
Him Ade. Ade, because it's his first name is Ade. His last name begins with Ade. So Ade Bawore out of Northwestern, 6'1" and 5'8", 284 pounds. 34-inch arms and a solid wingspan. Where'd he go? Oh my God. That's not solid wingspan. He's got almost a 7-foot wingspan on a 6'1" frame. That's insane. He's tying his shoes without bending over.
Yeah, I really also at the Senior Bowl. He was measured as the second fastest defensive lineman of the entire time, only behind Keon White, the freak show from Georgia Tech. So he's really interesting if he might be available for the Broncos, because he's not going to be a fit for every defense, but you're talking about that guy who can play defensive end and base and then play that 3 technique or 5-eye kind of stuff.
Right.
And, he's small, but his leverage is incredible. He forklifts everybody he plays. So I'm really a big fan of him. He's one to keep an eye on for the Broncos.
The offensive lineman from the national team voted him as the most valuable defensive player. Like, he was the hardest guy to go against in practice. So they did their votes for their opposition, which was kind of cool. So, I'll get some video up on him shortly so we can talk about him. That almost feels like a misprint. 82 and an eighth wingspan on a 6'1.5" frame. Wow.
Yeah, he's
I'm 6'1". My wingspan is 6'1". It's that's incredible to me. That almost feels like I want to see that at the combine. What's his wingspan at the combine?
Yeah, one of those dudes.
Arm length, 34-inch arm length on a compact frame. He's a good player.
Yeah, 100%. he's one that intrigues me a heck. I've a heck of a lot been working on a post Sean Payton mock draft, and he might make an appearance there for one of the Broncos picks in the top of the 3rd round. Camilo Sorrentino coming in saying, good morning, guys. Good to see you with the music notes there. We appreciate you. Dom coming in saying, how do you guys feel about the Broncos hiring of their special teams, their new strength and conditioning coach? Yeah, the Broncos bring in Dan
Dalrymple. See, I grew up, there was a Georgia Tech basketball player when I was a kid named Bruce Dalrymple. So I'm like, why are you guys struggling with this? I grew up with that name. Dan Dalrymple. That's all it is. It sounds like Dave Dalrymple. His last name's Dalrymple, or is it Dale? Yeah. It's his first name. I can't remember. It's Dan, Dave, Dale, one of those names.
Dapper Dan.
But Dalrymple, it sounds like an ice cream flavor. But that one's actually pretty easy to me. And I'll bail you out on this for a moment. Dom, I like the track record this guy has. You're coming in. He's been in the NFL for a long time. There's a difference between strength and conditioning for combine training. I want to try and get bigger, faster, more explosive, and then training that is then applied to and I'm not making a hack on Landau. I don't know enough about it, but combine training is very different from applicable training. It's like, hey, coach, I got to do all this stuff. I need to get bigger and faster and stronger for this combine so I can jump and run quicker. And then when that's done, I need to do my training that is more applicable training. I need my core strength better. I need to do all these things better. This guy's done it in the NFL for a long time. He doesn't care about 40-yard times or vertical jumps. He doesn't care. He wants to keep people healthy, keep them strong in the 4th quarter. Those are his 3 goals, and he's got a pretty good track record of doing that.
Yeah, so Dan Dalrymple, I think maybe I got it right. Dalrymple. Does sound like a raisin type of ice cream or something, but yeah,
Dalrymple.
Yeah, that's we'll see what happens there. I think for the Broncos, I've said it on here when the Broncos first got this ownership group, what are some areas that the money can really help with? The nutrition and the strength staff. So this isn't really a new age, cutting edge kind of thing, at least, a guy who's been there before. But it's somebody that Sean Payton knows. So hopefully it'll be a good hire for the Broncos. We'll see what happens here with the unit. Proof will be in the pudding for me for this one. If they can, skirt injuries and be healthier this season, then great. It'd be a 1-year sample size. I wouldn't be, banging the drum saying we got it solved there, but hopefully it'll be better. And it might just be better by sheer luck this season as well.
And I want to see some strength in the trenches. For the 2 years that I've been covering this team, we've used the term bullied so much, you're sick of hearing it. But this team gets bullied in the trenches. You go up against an AFC North type team, you lose. And because you're not able to hold up in the trenches. Strength and conditioning coach should have something to do with that. Again, applicable strength training for guys that aren't worried about running 40s. So we'll see. It should be very different. It could be more early injuries. It could be, Nick, because these guys are going to be training in a different way. And until they get used to that, until their body acclimates to what they're doing differently, there could be more injuries early on. You shouldn't see that over a 6-year span. So that's what we're looking for, Nick.
Yeah, and again, I'm not an expert in physiology, kinesiology, or anything like that, nutrition, strength and conditioning, training, et cetera, et cetera. I do know that when you just based on, talking to people more in the know than myself, that when you see the soft tissue injuries, the hamstrings, things like that, that is much more of a strength and conditioning issue. But some of the injuries the Broncos have had, the knee injuries, the torn ligaments, the ACLs, the Achilles, those are just big guys playing football and bleep happens. But hopefully it'll be better.
Well, the one that makes me scratch my head is the torn pectorals.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, let alone twice over the course of a couple of weeks to the same position. Something's wrong. I've got some close connections. I've got, I'm friends with one of the top trainers in the world, Chip Smith. He had Champ Bailey. I got to get him on the show one time so we can talk Champ Bailey. He had a bunch of Broncos, probably 30 or 40 of them at one point, guys that ended up either playing for the Denver Broncos or were drafted or whatnot. And then my brother-in-law is actually a physical therapist. When I asked him, I'm like, what would you say if, I found 2 guys that had, torn pectorals over the course of, a couple of weeks? He goes, they're training wrong. Just boom, like a reflex action. I'm like, all right. Again, we don't necessarily know enough, but I don't know how to fix my car, but I can tell when something's wrong. I'm watching the Denver Broncos. You've got a ton of injuries, and you're getting your asses kicked in the trenches. Something's wrong. So people smarter than me and get paid a whole lot more than me can figure that out, and let's bring in a guy that's got a pretty good track record. So to answer the original question, I'm pretty excited for you with the change at strength and conditioning coach.
Dan Dalrymple. We're nailing it. Got DeAndre F coming in here saying, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Good to see you, Andre. Always appreciate you coming in and saying hello. We got Desert Creature saying, I'm a Dapper Dan man. Great movie. Kevin Gray saying, perfect coffee today. It is hitting right. We had a rover take care of our pets while Natalie and I were in Hawaii, and we said, you can use our coffee maker, but I thought my coffee tasted a little off. She was using the normal coffee setting versus the rich. I need to drink my Lion coffee. It needs to be rich, the more flavor packed in there. So we're right on track now.
That's
I feel like
fancy coffee. I did this sounds coffee. I mean, like sounds fancy, a French press. It's not. It's pour hot water in and let it sit and plunge. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, we got a nice one for the from the wedding registry. So I love that baby. That's one that, if they say, have your luxuries or your treasures packed for like an emergency or something, coffee machine's coming with. I don't know if I'm gonna have electricity with me, but it's my emotional secure coffee maker.
I've got two coffee makers. They're steam coffee makers from like iCoffee that were really good. They're just a little harder to clean than this. This is just rinse it out. And then I've got a backup smaller. It's only like a 16-ounce French press. So I'm okay because you break these. It's inevitable. I break one of these about every 4 years or so. I'll chip it in the dishwasher or drop it or something will happen. You're like,
why? I have no free endorsements here, but for my backpacking and hiking and whatnot, I have a Jetboil Mini Mo, and it comes with a French press attachment in it that just like literally fits right in the boiled water, and you put the coffee grinds in there, let it sit for 15, slow press it. Oh, find a nice spot, a nice vista meadow or something in the morning with the sun rising and having your coffee by yourself. I'm ready for summer. Can you tell?
It is Broncos for breakfast, y'all. I mean, coffee talk is part of it. So apologies, Ernie, if you're there, we still love you, but we're going to talk a little coffee every once in a while. Mark Schrader with us as always. Good morning. Thank you for the stars, Mark. Appreciate the support that you always show our show to Nick and I, whether we're here, whether we're there, whether we're everywhere. You're always with us, and we love you for it. Jeremy Sean is coming up with another thing, and I'm going to add on to this too. The ligament and ruptured muscles, especially the ligaments and tendons, guys getting too big for their bodies to keep up with. It's a whole lot easier to train a muscle, and the science that has gone into building muscle and strength and the bigger, faster, stronger than it is to trade ligaments and tendons. The other part of that is the concussions. The skulls and craniums haven't really changed. Now they're trying to keep up with, the helmets, but the better helmets just mean people are leaning in with their heads more. Mm-hmm. So you've got guys that used to be 200 pounds running 4.8s running into people. Now you've got guys that are 250 pounds running sub 4.4, and their ligaments, tendons, and craniums have not kept up with the physical difference over the years that these guys have made. And it's become a more dangerous game.
Yep. That's we'll see if there's any change in technology of the helmets. They're using the Guardian helmets in a lot of preseason, training camp stuff. Now, granted, my understanding is the Guardian helmets are more of a protection of digits and extremities out there, because you see quarterbacks go out there and throw a football and break a finger on a helmet or something. So those little soft helmets are more helpful with that. But we'll see if there's a technology change here compared to those hard shells. I know we've had the conversation on here many times that you see better tackling form in like rugby where there's like no helmets.
Take the helmet away. I've said it'll never happen, ever, ever, never, ever. Yeah. But you want to get rid of concussions, you remove the helmets. Yep. And or at least it would significantly decrease them, because people are not leaning in, using their heads as a weapon like they do now. Yeah. And I mean offense and defense. They don't call it as much, but they do call it some. Running back goes into a pile. What's he do? Ducks his head flat out, and a lot of times you see the guys that are whiplashing to the ground. You see that a lot with quarterbacks. That was a lot more common. Hopefully they can do something like that. But yeah, it's the speed of the game, the size of the players has increased dramatically, where your ligaments, tendons, and cranium haven't kept up. and it's a more dangerous game for sure these days.
How could they? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So some Broncos news here, as far as the coaching search goes and coaching vacancies. We got the news yesterday that Broncos longtime wide receiver coach Zach Azzanni, who has been here for, God, I want to say since 2015, is moving on. He is moving to the New York Jets following Nathaniel Hackett out there to the Jets. So the Broncos, obviously a new staff is coming in. A lot of new positional coaches are going to be in place here. Hopefully they can get some new people in here. But Zach Azzanni, pretty well respected. I mean, the fact that he is going out there and getting the same position on another team relatively quickly out there shows that he's a relatively well-respected coach out there. You know, he didn't drop down to the college level or have to be like an assistant or something like that. So he's going to be a wide receivers coach out there for the New York Jets. He's been fine. I mean, you can say what you want about the Broncos, but I mean, what he did with, Tim Patrick, with some of these other guys out here in Denver, I think was pretty good. So wish him well out there in New York. Also, this one's not official yet, but I have heard there is some buzz that Broncos fan favorite Mike Munchak might be a favorite for the Arizona Cardinals offensive line coaching spot.
No,
so
they just hired a guy.
They did. I heard that there was some talk about Munchak.
They hired Clayton Adams, former tight ends coach of the Indianapolis Colts, who left in December to take the the run game coordinator job with the Stanford Cardinal and bailed on them to take the job last night with the Arizona Cardinals at the offensive line coach is what Adam Schefter reported.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. I heard there were some rumors about Munchak being somehow involved with the offensive line.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah, it might be. Somehow. But I'm almost positive he was hired as the offensive line coach. He was the assistant offensive line coach in Indianapolis before becoming the tight ends coach. And I'm almost positive that he was just hired as the offensive line coach with the Arizona Cardinals, because he went from Cardinal to Cardinals. And I actually put in quotes as a joke, no relation. So that one is done.
Hired Clayton Adams, per report. So there's been some talk of Munchak heading out to Arizona. Maybe it'd be a run game coordinator or something like that. But yeah, good catch on Clayton Adams, their offensive line coach from the Colts now to Arizona. Go ahead.
Which goes to the question, we've talked before, about Zimmerman, Don Zimmer, different people. Who am I talking about? Don Zimmer. Mike Zimmer, Colorado. Who's Don Zimmer? He's a baseball guy. Mike Zimmer, and he's like Zimmerman. I'm getting all my names confused. Anyway, the guy that was talking about being the defensive coordinator for Coach Prime for Deion Sanders at Colorado, like, well, he just went there. How could he come to the NFL? This is how. It doesn't matter. If you want the guy and he wants to come, he'll leave. It'll look bad. That's more important to some people than others, obviously. For Clayton Adams, he was at Stanford after leaving, walking out on Jeff Saturday and the Colts. He left there. Was there middle of December, middle of February. He's gone. He was there 2 months and left and took a job back in the NFL. So Zimmer could be, if that's the guy and he wants to do it, it could still happen without a doubt.
Yeah, 100%. We got our guy, Keone, coming in here. Aloha, and said, good morning. Thank you guys for everything you do. God bless and go Broncos. Got to be pretty darn early out there in Hawaii, Keone. Man, you guys are tired of talking about it. I had a question. I am already planning to get back out there. So aloha, mahalo, appreciate you. And
I love aloha.
Beautiful.
When you're going by somebody, and you want to say like hi and goodbye, it's like hi bye. And it's like, oh, aloha. It just makes sense. It's perfect. Sheldon Helms has a question. Then there's a follow-up too, which makes sense. He goes, how hard is it to find improvement at the punter and kicker positions? Is there any exceptional players in the draft? I don't know about the draft, but as Gatorade Gaming comes in, he says, Matt Ariza, I'm going to butcher his name too. That punter from San Diego State who was tied up in some controversy, but has since been cleared. He's available. Bring in for competition? Absolutely. If you're happy with, and again, we talked about this with Deshaun Watson a lot. I want the women in the room when they're talking about it, I want to consult, how would you feel if we brought him in? And if they green light it, it's like, listen, he was cleared. I did some checking in the back. We did some, and everything's good. Then bring him in. I have a feeling he will get a chance in the NFL somewhere. Why not Denver? Why not Denver? I think that's a good shout.
Yeah. These Broncos teams, he's been cleared of from lawful wrongdoing, but there's, these teams are PIs as much as they are talent
Not guilty
evaluators.
does not mean innocent.
Yeah. So they will put in the work there, and if he's cleared, and you mentioned it, Broncos have Kelly Klein in the front office, working with George Payton.
Rice might be under her pay grade, but I would absolutely, before I brought anybody in with any kind of history, I would need the get-go, the go-ahead, the green light.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the diversity of the coaching staff, age, race, whatever, different voices, different backgrounds, different views on life. It's important, and this it would matter to me as well, that I would get the okay from various aspects. If I've got somebody coming in that's got some legal problems in the past concerning women.
Yeah, 100%. Andre F. saying, any concern that the Broncos wide receiver room will take a step back 1 year with Zach Azzanni gone?
No.
I would say no, but that's more so because you're getting a better scheme in here. I just can't imagine they'll take a step back. Jerry Jeudy emerging now. The room is going to look potentially a little different, like we talked about already. Maybe Courtland Sutton gets shopped, traded if there's a market out there for veterans in the trade market. But step back, I don't think so. I think they're going to be put in better positions this year.
On the whole, Andre, appreciate the super. Love it coming in green. Thank you, sir. On the whole, which wide receiver exceeded expectations last year? They all underperformed. We can talk about the last couple games for Jerry Jeudy. Well, that was 3 or 4 games on over 18. So Sutton, Patrick wasn't there, obviously. Hamler, Jeudy, the 4 big guys coming in. Which one of them exceeded expectations or even met expectations? None of them. 0. None. So do I expect them to take a step back in year? No, I expect all of them to be better because of your head coach and the offensive scheme, and hopefully some investment in the offensive line. That's not a shot at Azzanni. That's a shot at the 2022 Broncos.
Yeah.
So I expect them to be better based on all of the things that I just mentioned. Appreciate the question and the super, Andre.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Andre. Hope you're doing well. We got Savage Boy Kev coming in on O2, coming in saying, who is the front runner for the offensive coordinator job? Haven't heard many rumblings on the offensive coordinator job. I think it's probably because Broncos country doesn't care as much, because your offensive play caller, schemer, designer is going to be Sean Payton, and the offensive coordinator is going to be there more so to help Sean Payton with everything. So if it's somebody he's comfortable with or a new blood or anything like that, that's fine. But I don't think it matters as much as the defensive coordinator spot, so there hasn't been as much conversation about that. If it's Lombardi, if it's Anthony Lynn, if it's somebody else out there, fine. I haven't heard much beyond Lombardi though. But I don't know, Scott, you're on the shows a lot with Zach and Chad. Have you heard anything else?
There hasn't been any talk other than Ronald Curry, who wanted to get a look. Yes. Ronald Curry was one of the best two-way athletes in the history of this nation. Mm-hmm. When he was coming out of high school, he was a basketball player too. So he went to UNC on basketball and football. That ain't easy to do, but he's staying with the Saints. I mean, Joe Brady was getting head coaching sniffs 2 years after holding a cup of coffee for Sean Payton. That's how Sean Payton was once thought, not too long ago. Who he comes in, who he brings in, it doesn't really matter. For the offensive coordinator, it doesn't. Get a young up and comer that you can move on, that will move on in the next couple of years. So Patrick Wiltsey, we've been talking Hawaii a lot. Aloha, appreciate you coming in. And I already finished my coffee from Patrick. Thank you, sir. Lioncoffee.com. And aloha to the other side of the pond as well. There's what? Man. That's probably about 12-hour time difference right now between Ethan and Patrick. So definitely not a geographic location, but a state of being. And one of the reasons we like this time slot, so we can get all of the different areas. Ethan coming in red hot this morning. He says, Saquon Barkley looks like a Peyton running back, very similar to Reggie Bush and Alvin Kamara. Might be a sleeper signing. Food for breakfast thought. Okay, great shout here. Because we're talking franchise tags, and they have 2 free agents that they'd like to hold on to, the New York Giants, that is, including Daniel Jones. You would rather use that franchise tag on the quarterback if he'll take it at $32 million, because that's about what he's going to get on average, than, okay, if I want to re-sign Saquon Barkley and pay 10, it might cost me 12. So what? That might cost me $2 million. I could be $20 million a year difference between Daniel Jones and what I'm willing to pay him. What he wants and what I'm willing to pay him could be $20 million. It might be $2 or $3 million. So I don't think will use the franchise tag on Saquon. It's possible. They don't, again, nobody wants to play on a franchise tag when they can get 150 million guaranteed. So I'm talking myself out of this, Nick. But if they use the franchise tag in the next 2 weeks on anybody, the New York Giants, I think it'll probably be Daniel Jones.
It'll be interesting. There was reports yesterday that Daniel Jones has just fired his agent, right? They hired a new agent, which typically means looking for better contract situation. And I think the number thrown out was 46 million, something crazy for Daniel Jones. I could be incorrect on that one. He had a great season.
Doesn't get. I always love that from The Dark Knight Rises. He goes, wants, doesn't get. Don't worry about what they say they want. Try and figure out what they can get, what they can settle for. He ain't getting $45 million. No way. But that does increase the likelihood that he would get the franchise tag in the short term.
Yep. So Barkley, the thing that scares me about Barkley, I'm actually coming around more on paying running back second contracts, but there's a big asterisk on that. It needs to be essentially a 2-year contract where the guarantees are not, 3 or 4 years down the line, because the running backs are extremely volatile and the injuries, we saw it, they come at any point, anytime. So you do not want to be committed long-term. So if Barkley wants to come in for a good contract, that would look like a 3-year deal. It's essentially a 2-year deal. Still pay him handsomely. I'd be interested. I think what you're going to pay and the output you're going to get from Barkley for the per dollar is probably what you're going to be. Most wide receiver threes are going to be getting on the market right now. I might rather have what Barkley can do on the market compared to what the wide receivers are getting. But again, it needs to be a relatively short-term contract. And I don't know, given his demand, probably given his talent, if that's what he would want in Denver. I think somebody would probably offer him a 4 or 5 year deal, and I'm not interested in the length of a contract.
Yeah, it might not be up to him. We'll see.
That's true.
We'll see if the analytics have gone through the NFL enough that there's somebody still out there ignorant enough to give him a 5-year deal. It just doesn't work out. Doesn't matter who it is. We've seen a lot of these big number contracts come in through the second time. Again, thank you, Ethan. As I click off, appreciate everything that you do for us. Michael Ranquillo comes and he says, this is a great comment from Michael. He says, someone said David Shaw was a sleeper pick for Broncos offensive coordinator. Kind of forgot about him. And all of the reasons I said I didn't want David Shaw as your head coach get solved if he becomes the offensive coordinator. I said I don't necessarily want him. When's the last time he called plays? Okay, well, he wouldn't have to call plays. This would be a step in for him to come in and get back into the NFL, work under one of the top offensive minds in the NFL, maybe even take over. So he's calling plays next year, whatever, but get back in the NFL and reintroduce himself and become a legit head coaching candidate in a year from now. I think that would be an ideal. It makes too much sense. It makes a lot of sense, Michael. Appreciate the call out. Yeah,
good one. That's one that I've forgot to mention as well, but I've definitely heard some rumblings about that.
That makes a ton of sense.
Connecting dots. So we'll see. Back to Saquon Barkley. Oh, we got Jonathan Follick first, 1999. Thank you so much, Jonathan. This is a big time donation, and we appreciate you. Saying rarely catch a live show, but often watch afterwards. Well, we appreciate that, but we like it even more if you're live. Help and donate and support the show. But either way, it's listening afterwards. We really appreciate that. Wondering what you guys expect from Christopher Allen next season. Also, I'm going to Big Island next week. Any recommendations? Appreciate your thoughts. Oh, man, Jonathan, we could spend 30 minutes. I could tell you everything we did on Big Island. I'm very much a go person on vacations, and we went a lot. So I'll spend a couple minutes here after we answer your first question. As far as Christopher Allen, next year, Broncos brought him as an undrafted free agent. He spent the entire season essentially as a redshirt year, a medical redshirt season. He had some really good flashes out there at Alabama before getting injured early in the 2021 season. So I think it's something where if anything you can get from him, it's gravy. I think he's going to be competing with the back end of the edge rushers. And potentially, let's say he shows well enough next year, you can do a similar thing you did this year with Malik Reed, with Jonathan Cooper this time. You trade a Jonathan Cooper and a 6th-round pick for a 5th-round pick. That kind of thing where you're increasing the value. You have an extra roster spot out there. Jonathan Cooper's been a good player for you, but you have a glut of resources for that rotational edge rusher out there. You keep the younger cheaper, more upside guy, keeping Christopher Allen, moving on from a Cooper in that situation. But he's definitely one that we're going to be at least I'm going to be very interested in watching this offseason training camp, and especially when you're watching, the third stringers and preseason games, like, oh man, this is a little bit rough. At least I can watch Christopher Allen with some intrigue.
Yeah, and that's what preseason is great for people like us who are a little nuts. We love those games. I want to see those guys that might not necessarily be starters, but you could count on to be rotational pieces come in and flash, and then they become preseason hits, spring sensations, so to speak. So Jonathan, I didn't have any. I kind of forgot about him, to be honest with you. I don't necessarily have any expectations, which is a good thing. Which brings me the callback to when I was talking about the wide receivers that met expectations, which one of them did. And Aki had a funny comment. He said, KJ Hamler met my expectations. It is a relative question, isn't it? It's a relative question. Yeah. What were you expecting to begin with? I wasn't expecting much, and by God, he delivered. I think we were hoping for more. Let me put it that way. What we were hoping for more. And Mandy Lawson coming in on Facebook too said, thank you very much for checking in. And Jonathan, we get about 4 times the views on YouTube after the fact. So if you're listening after the fact and you've made it this far, leave a comment. We'll check back in with you on demand for sure. So appreciate you being here. And I would hit Nick up on Twitter. He'll talk Big Island with you all the time. So Christopher Allen, no risk, high reward. Let's see how it plays out this summer and fall. Good shout, Jonathan.
Yeah, just real quick, Big Island. Really enjoyed snorkeling at Two Step Beach and the Captain Cook Monument. Incredible reefs there. Kona has some of the clearest waters in the world because there's no rivers draining into the ocean on that side, and also with how the lava rock works, there's no particulate matter in the water. Snorkeling there was incredible. We did a night snorkeling with manta rays with Sea Paradise, and a day snorkeling with them as well. That was amazing. My favorite beaches that we went to on the island, we had a Jeep. You need a Jeep to get to these beaches. The roads are insane. But I'm going to butcher this, so I really apologize to our Hawaiians in here. But Kekaha Kai State Beach, there are 3 or 4 beaches out that way that are amazing. You have to walk through like lava rock to get to them, but they're not just like totally overcrowded. And then also really, really enjoyed on the east side of the island, Volcano National Park. The Crater Rim Road was incredible. I got to see the volcano right now is bubbling lava. I've got to see like lava spitting out of the crater, which was incredible. And then the Punalu'u black sand beach, beautiful, crazy black sand, sea turtles sunbathing 10 feet from me. I mean, it was a trip of a lifetime. I had a blast. So a Big Island, great time.
Very cool. Savage Boy Kev comes in. He says, if we get Barkley, what do we do with Javonte? If he's healthy, you use him. You run split backs. You can run 220, 230 touches for both of them. That'd be great. But what it does, it also gives you the luxury of not having to rush him back. And that's you're going to anyway. But one more week, okay? Or, it's week 4 and we've got a week 5 bye. You know what? Let's hold him to week 6. It's a luxury to be able to ease him back into things when he's ready. So it wouldn't necessarily affect Javonte Williams at all in a negative way for sure. So you need more than one back. You need at least 2 good ones, especially in a Sean Payton offense. He'll throw to those guys 60 times. So you use Javonte as much as you can when he's ready to go. Aki Dragon coming in real quick. He says, thanks for the show, guys. Thank you for being here, Aki. Appreciate you being here. And the closer, we haven't gotten to use that term in a while. Just about ready to close us out. Ethan, the DWI guys coming in to close us out. He says, as for Sutton, why not reap rewards of the team-friendly contract of $14 million per year average for the next 3 years, age 28 to 30 seasons? I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. The Ted DiBiase $1 Million Man, old WWE wrestling guy, everybody has a price. I'm listening. I'll listen for Surtain. I want 2 starters and 3 first-round picks. Then you can have Surtain. Well, that's insane. Well, he's not for sale. I would listen for Sutton and throw up a flag and say, listen, this guy is on a team-friendly contract for the next 3 years. Are you interested? We feel pretty good about where we are at the wide receiver position with Tim Patrick is making really good progress. Jerry Jeudy, we want to make him the face of this offense and really move forward. So Sutton is available. What do you got? Well, I'll send you a third for him. Yeah, never mind. So listen, but I absolutely agree with you. It would take a really, really good offer, not just someone I'm trying to move to clear cap space or what, because you're not going to clear up that much cap space. A happy, healthy Courtland Sutton with a Sean Payton offense should be a very productive weapon in 2023. I'm 100% with you, Ethan.
Yeah, my understanding is, and this was after Sean Payton was traded for, is that the Broncos are really in the hunt for draft capital because they are looking to build this team in Sean Payton's image. And with where they sit right now in terms of draft capital and cap space, it's going to be pretty damn hard to do that. So they are seeing what the market looks like for some of their veterans that they consider ones that they could live without. And that might be Courtland Sutton as well, based on this report. I didn't get specifics when I heard that, but that the fact that the Broncos would be looking to potentially trade some players to get draft capital so that way they can get Sean Payton specific minded, scheme minded players for this team so they can build it in his image. So they'd have to be blown away again. I think you'd have to get the compensation equivalent of a mid-second round pick to get him in here. And that doesn't mean it has to be a second round pick. It could be a third round pick this year and a third round pick next year or something like that. That would intrigue me for the Broncos because you'd be saving some salary cap as well. And that would be, you have two then cost controlled players that make it easier to move on from Russell Wilson if that is the case after this upcoming season. But we'll see. I think I'm not pro or anti trading Courtland Sutton. What does the market look like and what does the solution in replacing him look like? Then we can make a more educated decision.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening. And a second round pick. All right, that's my opener, Nick. I mean, it might even take more than that. And again, we don't know that Courtland Sutton may be pushing because I want out.
Yeah.
That's something we haven't taken into account, and maybe that wouldn't come out. And some talking here, as I mentioned, Ted DiBiase. This in 2 years, this is the first mistake I think you've made, Jeremy. Wonder Boy. That's the natural. The natural's Wonder Boy. That's his bat. Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Come on, man. And Ric Flair was the better hype man for over Macho Man Savage. So Ric Flair. To beat the man, you gotta be the man. I am not going to give a woo, though. Not going to do it.
Come on, maybe for another super chat he will. But anything for money. No. Well, guys, we got to wrap it on up here. I got to go pick up groceries and get my day started here. But we appreciate the heck out of all you coming in. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook communities, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share on YouTube. Click that thumbs up, click that bell so that way you know when we go live. You guys are great. Shout out to Ethan. Shout out to Patrick. Shout out to Aki Dragon. Shout out to Jonathan Fallick. Shout out to Andre F. Michael Ronquillo coming in, always with the support. Mark Schrader.
Michael's coming in with 5,000 stars to finish this out. So he's not just coming in with support. He's throwing down, speaking of wrestling, one of those top ropes. Coming down with the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat elbow. Actually, that was Superfly was the splash though. I think Macho Man came off the top rope with the elbow. Superfly Snuka came out with the splash. We're going way back. So thank you, because this was definitely top rope. Y'all were awesome today to us. So
yes,
good to be back. Thank you for welcoming us back the way you have. Appreciate everything.
And it's Tuesday, so what does that mean? We're probably going to get our breaking news at some point today about the Broncos defensive coordinator, but we'll see. I think Vance Joseph is actually going to interview with the Eagles today and tomorrow because they were supposed to interview him yesterday, but instead they interviewed Jim Leonard. So we'll see what happens. But you guys have a great one. Fun show as always. I will see you guys again tonight with Carl on building the Broncos, and then I'll see you guys again tomorrow morning with Scott over on Coast to Coast Football, Forging Falcons. All that good stuff. We're getting into the draft time, so good stuff hanging out. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.